In the bustling heart of Berlin, the winter air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of roasted chestnuts from street vendors. The streets were alive, a river of tourists and locals wrapped in woolen coats, their breath visible in the cold. Among them walked Aliyah, a 17-year-old girl. Her skin was dark, and she wore a tattered coat that barely kept out the chill. Her hair was braided tightly, and her eyes, though weary, held a sharp spark of determination. Aliyah had grown up in the shadow of the city's wealthier districts. Her mother had passed away 2 years ago, leaving her alone with debts in a small apartment in Newcall that barely kept a roof over her head. School had become a luxury she could no longer afford. Every day was a fight for survival. She delivered newspapers, ran errands for strangers, and sometimes begged for work at local cafes, all just to have enough for a single meal. Life had taught her to keep her head down, avoid trouble, and rely on no one but herself. On a particularly cold afternoon, Aliyah found herself trudging down Kerfurstendam, the city's famous shopping street. The sidewalks were crowded with people in designer coats and polished shoes, a world away from her own. She clutched a bag of groceries she could barely afford, navigating through the crowd without making eye contact, feeling like a ghost. At that exact moment, Lucas Reinhardt, a man in his early 30s, was walking the same street. Lucas was the heir to a powerful Berlin real estate empire. Dressed impeccably in a tailored overcoat, his presence drew subtle glances from passers-by. Despite his immense wealth and influence, he often felt a strange, persistent emptiness, a profound disconnection from the world outside his glass offices and luxury apartments. Then, their two separate worlds collided. Literally, distracted by a rare text message about a potential freelance job, Aliyah tripped over a crack in the pavement. Her grocery bag flew from her grasp, bursting open, sending cans of soup and beans rolling across the cold stone. Lucas, stepping out of a high-end boutique, instinctively reached out and caught her arm, steadying her before she could fall. "Are you okay?" he asked. His German accent was smooth, but his tone was gentle, concerned. Aliyah looked up, startled. She was used to people ignoring her, avoiding her gaze, or worse, being openly rude. This man's sudden, kind presence felt almost surreal. I'm fine," she stammered, quickly bending down to gather her scattered groceries, her face burning with embarrassment. Lucas crouched beside her without a second thought, helping to pick up the cans. He looked at her closely, at the exhaustion etched on her young face. "No, you're not fine," he said softly. "You look exhausted. Do you live around here?" Aliyah hesitated, the words caught in her throat. Pride was all she had left. "Yes. I mean, not far," she muttered, her eyes fixed on the pavement. Something about her quiet honesty and the subtle defiance in her voice stirred a feeling in Lucas he couldn't name. He didn't usually involve himself in the lives of strangers, but Aliyah's struggle was so visible not just in her worn-out clothes, but in the way she carried herself, bearing a weight that no 17-year-old should have to carry alone. "Listen," Lucas said carefully, choosing his words. "I know it's none of my business, but you shouldn't be walking around like this. It's freezing, and you deserve better." Aliyah shook her head, a bitter laugh, almost escaping her lips. "Better doesn't exist for people like me." Lucas frowned. Her words struck a chord he didn't expect. In that instant, a decision formed in him, a mixture of compassion, curiosity, and a sudden need to act. "Come with me," he said, surprising even himself with the invitation. Just for a warm drink. No strings attached. Aaliyah was wary. Her life had taught her to distrust offers like this, to see the hidden cost in every act of kindness. But something about Luca's eyes come steady and almost protective made her nod. They entered a small, cozy cafe, tucked between the glittering designer stores. Lucas ordered 2 hot coffees and a large slice of Black Forest cake, insisting she eat first. Aaliyah hadn't had a proper meal in hours. She accepted, quietly observing him as he sipped his espresso, wondering what he wanted. "You shouldn't be alone like this," Lucas said again, his voice low. "Life can be unfair, but people sometimes help when they see you're trying." Aaliyah looked at him, her skepticism clear in her eyes. "And you're helping me? Why?" He smiled faintly, a shadow of sadness touching his own eyes. "Maybe because I remember being 17 and feeling invisible. Maybe because I can." Over the next few weeks, that one encounter blossomed into an unlikely connection. Lucas found ways to help Aaliyah without overwhelming her pride. He offered her legitimate freelance opportunities through his network graphic design work, translations, things she was good at, but never had a chance to pursue. He paid for her small apartment's much-needed repairs, framing it as an advance on her work. And sometimes, they would simply spend time together, walking the streets of Berlin while she told him stories about the city's hidden corners, the places the tourists never saw. Through him, Aaliyah began to learn that compassion wasn't the same as pity. It could be genuine, quiet support that gave her the space to stand on her own 2 feet, to thrive without losing herself. And through her, Lucas rediscovered a sense of humanity he had long forgotten amidst the cold world of corporate power and immense wealth. She showed him a Berlin he had never truly seen. One rainy evening, they stood by the Spree River, the city lights shimmering on the dark water. Aaliyah looked at him, her face illuminated by the passing boats. "You know," she said softly, "I used to think the world hated people like me, that we were meant to be invisible." She paused. "But maybe it's just people who don't understand." Lucas placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, the warmth seeping through her coat. "No, it's not the world," he replied. "It's us. People. We just need to really see each other sometimes. And that's why I'm so glad I met you." Aaliyah smiled, a real, genuine smile that lit up her entire face, the first one in months, maybe even years. It wasn't the end of her struggles, not by a long shot. The world hadn't magically changed, but for the first time, she felt the warmth of someone who truly believed in her, not because she deserved it out of pity, but because humanity sometimes chooses mercy over indifference. And there, in the heart of Berlin, 2 people from completely different worlds found a fragile, beautiful connection. A quiet reminder that empathy can cross even the widest divides, building a bridge between shadows and sunlight. Thanks for watching. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe for more content that explores the connections that bind us all. See you next time.